The custodians for 3 centuries, the Galactic Federation treated humanity like cosmic janitors, useful for cleaning up messes but never invited to the important meetings. They laughed at our crude technology, mocked our short lifespans, and dismissed our primitive ways of thinking. But while they debated in their crystal towers, humans were doing what we do best, building something impossible in the shadows. When the void swarm came to devour the galaxy, every advanced civilization ran screaming. That's when Earth's children revealed what we'd been hiding in the dark between stars, and the universe learned why you should never underestimate the species that turned rocks into rockets. Captain Sarah Chen floated in the observation deck of Maintenance Station Gamma 7, watching another convoy of Velnari pleasure cruisers dump their waste into the processing bays. The elegant swan-necked aliens never bothered to acknowledge the human crews who cleaned up after them. To the Velnari, humans were furniture that happened to breathe and occasionally needed feeding. Another load of toxic sludge from the Andorian vacation fleet, announced Marcus Rodriguez over the comm. His voice carried the weary resignation of someone who'd spent 15 years scooping alien garbage out of space. Marcus was the station's chief engineer, a man whose brilliant mind was supposedly wasted on waste management. At least, that's what the Federation's personnel files said. Same as always, Sarah replied, watching the graceful alien ships glide away without so much as a transmission of thanks. Just keep the processors running, Marcus. We've got 3 more convoys coming in today. The Galactic Federation was a beautiful lie wrapped in crystal spires and gravity-defying architecture. 47 species had joined together in harmony, they claimed, to bring peace and prosperity to the galaxy. What they didn't mention in their recruitment brochures was the strict hierarchy. The Velnari controlled finance and trade. The crystalline Zephyrians handled technology and research. The massive armored Krogthans managed military affairs. And humans? Humans got the jobs nobody else wanted. Waste management, asteroid mining, deep space salvage, hazardous material cleanup. For 300 years, humanity had been the Federation's custodial staff, invisible and ignored. They paid us just enough to keep working and not enough to leave. Sarah's personal communicator chimed with an encrypted message. Her heart rate spiked as she read the simple code. Storm clouds gathering. Thunder follows lightning. It was a phrase that had been passed down through 5 generations of her family, waiting for this moment. Marcus, she said, keeping her voice steady, I need you to run a level 7 diagnostic on the main processors. All of them? Sarah, that'll take 6 hours and we've got all of them, she repeated, adding the slightest emphasis to her words. Marcus paused. He was smart enough to hear what she wasn't saying. Copy that, Captain. Initiating full diagnostic now. Across the station, similar conversations were happening. Maintenance Chief Patel suddenly needed to recalibrate the communications array. Security Officer Kim discovered an urgent need to inspect the long-range sensor suite. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves found mysterious contamination in the medical bay that required complete isolation protocols. Within an hour, Maintenance Station Gamma 7 was officially offline for routine maintenance, just like 17 other waste management facilities scattered across the outer rim. To the Federation, it was Tuesday. To humanity, it was the beginning of the end of 3 centuries of servitude. The real message came through 40 minutes later on channels that officially didn't exist. Admiral Helena Voss appeared on Sarah's secured screen, her weathered face, grim but determined. At 73, Voss had spent her entire career smiling politely while aliens treated her like a janitor. Today that smile was gone. All station commanders, Voss began without preamble. The Prometheus protocol is now active. Repeat, Prometheus is active. The Federation Council received first contact from the Void Swarm 18 hours ago. They've evacuated the core worlds and abandoned the outer rim to its fate. Sarah felt her blood turn to ice. The Void Swarm was the galaxy's boogeyman, a theoretical threat that kept xenobiologists awake at night. Ancient, mechanical entities that consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space in their wake. Most species believed they were mythology, The Federation's top scientists had been tracking their approach for decades, always insisting they were still centuries away. The swarm has consumed the Kepler arm, Voss continued. 47 inhabited systems gone. The Federation's response was to evacuate their precious core worlds and leave everyone else to die. They've officially classified the Outer Rim as acceptable losses. On screen, Admiral Voss's expression hardened into something that would have made her ancestors proud. Sarah recognized that look. It was the same expression worn by every human who had ever been counted out, written off, or left behind. "Ladies and gentlemen," Voss said, "it's time to show the galaxy what humanity has been building while they weren't looking." The next transmission came from much deeper in space. Beyond the charted systems, past the shipping lanes, in the cold, darkness between stars where no civilized species bothered to look. The signal was strong, impossibly strong, as if broadcast from something massive beyond imagination. "This is Constructor Fleet Alpha to all Prometheus stations," came a voice Sarah didn't recognize. "We are moving to intercept the Void Swarm. Estimated contact in 72 hours. All custodial personnel are to abandon their posts and report. To designated rally points, the masquerade is over. Constructor Fleet Alpha." Sarah had heard whispers of that name in the deepest, most secured channels of the human communication network. Stories passed down through families, rumors that sounded too incredible to believe. While the Federation treated humans like servants, the stories went. The real work was happening in the dark. Ships were being built, not just ships, megastructures, that dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. "Marcus," Sarah called, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "How long until that diagnostic is complete?" "Just finished, Captain," came his reply. But there was something different in his tone now. Something that sounded like anticipation. "Funny thing, though. The diagnostics show some unusual readings in the storage bay. Might want to take a look." Sarah made her way to Storage Bay 7, the largest of the station's cargo holds. She'd been in this bay thousands of times over the years, supervising the loading and unloading of waste containers and salvage materials. Today, Marcus was standing next to a control panel she'd never seen before. "Been wondering when you'd get that message," he said with a grin that transformed his entire face. Gone was the resigned waste management engineer. In his place stood a man who looked like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. "How long have you known?" Sarah asked. "My whole life," Marcus replied, pressing a sequence on the hidden panel. "My grandfather helped design the first constructor. My father supervised the assembly of the drive cores, and me, I've been making sure nobody looked too closely at what we were really doing out here." The bay's floor began to move, massive sections sliding apart to reveal something impossible. Sarah stared down into a cavernous space that seemed to extend far beyond the station's official dimensions. Gleaming in the artificial lights were rows upon rows of equipment that definitely wasn't waste management gear. "Micro-constructors," Marcus explained, gesturing to devices that looked like metallic spiders the size of shuttlecraft. "Each one can build anything from a fighter craft to a space station, given enough raw materials. We've been feeding them asteroid minerals and processed waste for decades." "The garbage," Sarah breathed, understanding flooding through her. "We weren't just processing waste, we were converting it. Every scrap of metal, every organic compound, every rare earth element that the Federation threw away." Marcus nodded. "Nothing was actually waste. It was all raw materials, and we've been collecting it for 300 years. Sarah's communicator chimed again. This time the message was broadcast on all human channels, no longer bothering with encryption. Admiral Voss's voice echoed through every human facility in Federation space. "Citizens of Earth and her colonies," the Admiral announced. "For 3 centuries we have endured second-class status in this galaxy. We have been servants, custodians, and caretakers while more advanced species held the reins of power. Today, that changes." The message continued, but Sarah was distracted by new readings on Marcus's control panel. Long-range sensors were detecting massive gravity wells moving through deep space far larger than any known ship classification. "They're coming," Marcus whispered, reading the same data. "The constructors are finally coming home." Through the station's main viewport, Sarah could see the first signs, points of light in the distance growing brighter and larger with impossible speed. As they approached, their true scale became apparent. These weren't ships in any conventional sense. They were mobile worlds, vast mechanical constructs bristling with construction bays, manufacturing centers, and weapon systems that made Federation dreadnoughts look like toys. The lead constructor was the largest artificial object Sarah had ever seen. Easily the size of Earth's moon, its hull was a maze of docking bays, sensor arrays, and what appeared to be entire cities built into its surface. As it drew closer, smaller ships began launching from its bays, not dozens or hundreds, but thousands upon thousands, filling space with a cloud of human-built vessels. "This is Constructor Prime to Maintenance Station Gamma 7, came a transmission from the massive vessel. "Captain Chen, this is Admiral Voss. Permission to come aboard?" Sarah found her voice somehow. "Permission granted, Admiral, but I think we're going to need a bigger docking bay." The laugh that came through the comm was filled with decades of suppressed pride and anticipation. "Don't worry, Captain. We brought our own." As the constructor fleet moved past the maintenance station, Sarah caught glimpses of other impossible sights. Ships that seemed to be constructing themselves as they flew, their hulls growing and adapting in real time. Manufacturing, vessels that were simultaneously building fighters, bombers, and capital ships while maintaining formation. And behind them, emerging from the darkness between stars, more constructors than Sarah could count. "How many?" she asked Marcus. "The official count is classified," he replied. "But let's just say we've been busy. Every asteroid belt, every dead system, every corner of space the Federation considered worthless. We've been there, building, growing, preparing." Sarah's personal communicator buzzed with an urgent priority message from Federation Command. The transmission was from High Arbiter Kexmiran himself, the crystalline leader of the Galactic Federation. "All human personnel," the Arbiter's melodious voice announced, "report immediately to Federation safe zones for evacuation. The Outer Rim is being abandoned to the Void Swarm threat. This is for your own protection." Marcus snorted. "Isn't that thoughtful? Now they care about protecting us." Sarah studied the tactical display showing the advancing Void Swarm. 47 star systems consumed and counting. The Federation's mighty fleets were in full retreat, abandoning entire sectors to save their core worlds. The same species that had treated humans like servants for 3 centuries were now running for their lives. "How long until Constructor Prime docks?" Sarah asked. 14 minutes, Marcus replied. "Just enough time to pack up the important stuff and leave the rest." "What about the station?" Marcus grinned, the expression of someone who'd been planning this moment for decades. "The station was always expendable, but the manufacturing data, the construction protocols, the genetic archives, all the really important stuff is already backed up on the constructor network." Sarah took one last look around the maintenance station that had been her home for 5 years. It looked different now, knowing what it really was. Not a waste processing facility, but a collection point. Not a maintenance station, but a forward outpost. Not humanity's assignment, but humanity's choice. "Marcus," she said, "send a message to Federation Command. Let them know that Maintenance Station Gamma 7 is officially closing its doors." "What should I tell them?" Sarah smiled, thinking of all the times alien administrators had dismissed human capabilities, all the occasions when human suggestions had been ignored, all the moments when her species had been treated as an afterthought. "Tell them," she said, "that the custodians are done cleaning up other people's messes. From now on, we're making our own." The Constructor Prime's docking bay was larger than most space stations. As Sarah and her crew transferred aboard, she marveled at the efficiency of the operation. Everything moved with the precision of a plan that had been rehearsed for generations. This wasn't improvisation. This was the culmination of 3 centuries of preparation. "Welcome aboard, Captain," said Admiral Voss as Sarah stepped onto the constructor's bridge. The Admiral looked different now, standing on the command deck of humanity's greatest achievement. She looked like what she'd always been but could never show. A leader, a strategist, a force to be reckoned with. "It's bigger than I imagined," Sarah said, looking out at the bridge that stretched farther than some city blocks. "It's bigger than anyone imagined," Voss replied. "The Federation thought they knew what humanity was capable of. They saw our crude ships, our simple technology, our short lifespans, and they made assumptions. What they didn't understand is that we were never trying to impress them. We were planning to survive them," Sarah finished. "Exactly." Admiral Voss turned to face the main display, which showed the tactical situation across the galaxy. The void swarm was advancing steadily, consuming everything in its path. Federation fleets were retreating in panic, abandoning entire sectors, and between the swarm and the Federation's core worlds, humanity's constructor fleet was taking position. "Admiral," Sarah said quietly, "are we really going to fight that thing?" Voss smiled, the expression of someone who had been underestimated for far too long. "Captain Chen, we've spent 300 years cleaning up messes that other species thought were impossible to handle. The void swarm is just the biggest mess yet." Sarah looked at the display showing thousands of human vessels moving into formation, ships that had been built in secret, crewed by people who had spent their lives being dismissed as second-class citizens. But now, with extinction bearing down on the galaxy, they were the only ones moving toward the threat instead of away from. "First time to show the galaxy," Admiral Voss announced to the fleet. "What humanity looks like when we stop saying, 'Yes, sir,' and start saying, 'Watch this.'" The revelation. The Constructor Prime's war room was buzzing with activity that would have made Federation strategists weep with envy. Holographic displays showed real-time tactical data from across 3 sectors, while human officers coordinated the movement of thousands of vessels with the efficiency of a machine. Sarah Chen found herself promoted from waste management captain to tactical coordinator faster than she could process. "Swarm contact in 18 hours, announced Commander Torres, a woman Sarah had never seen before but who somehow knew every detail of Sarah's service record. "Federation evacuation fleets are streaming past our position. They're not even bothering to scan us." Admiral Voss studied the tactical display with the attention of someone who had been planning this moment for decades. The void swarm appeared as a wall of red markers advancing through space, consuming everything in its path. Behind them, empty sectors marked only with the notation, "Devoured." "How many constructor fleets do we have in position?" Voss asked. 12 primary constructors, 47 support vessels, and approximately 15,000 escort craft, replied Marcus Rodriguez, who had apparently been a fleet engineer this whole time. "Constructor fleets Beta through Delta are moving to flanking positions. Fleet Echo is maintaining overwatch." Sarah stared at the numbers. 15,000 ships. How had humanity built 15,000 ships without the Federation noticing? The answer came to her as she watched the tactical display update with new vessel classifications. "They're not pre-built," she realized. "You're manufacturing them on the fly." "Now she's getting it," Voss said with approval. "Captain Chen, meet. Constructor Prime's true purpose, we're not just a warship, we're a mobile shipyard. Every constructor in the fleet can manufacture everything from fighters to dreadnoughts while maintaining combat operations." The main display shifted to show Constructor Prime's internal structure. Sarah gasped as she saw the scale of the manufacturing. Bays, assembly lines, and resource processing centers. The entire vessel was essentially a factory that happened to have weapons. Raw materials come from asteroid mining operations, space debris, and yes, 3 centuries of processed waste, Marcus explained. "We can build a fully armed frigate in 6 hours, a cruiser in 18 hours, and a dreadnought in 3 days. The Federation never suspected because they never looked past the garbage we were supposedly hauling around." "Incoming transmission from Federation Command," announced the communications officer. "High Arbiter Kexmiran wants to speak with the Human Waste Management Coordinator." Admiral Voss's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. "Put him through. Let's see what His Crystalline Majesty wants now that his perfect galaxy is falling apart." The holographic display shimmered, revealing the elegant form of High Arbiter Kexmiran. The leader of the Galactic Federation was a being of living crystal, beautiful and translucent with a voice like wind chimes. For 3 centuries he had been the face of enlightened leadership. Today, he looked desperate. Human vessel. the Arbiter began, his usual condescending tone replaced by something approaching panic. You are ordered to evacuate the combat zone immediately. The Void Swarm cannot be stopped. All available resources must be dedicated to protecting the core worlds. High Arbiter, Admiral Voss replied with perfect military courtesy. This is Admiral Helena Voss of the Terran Constructor Fleet. We appreciate your concern, but will be remaining in position. The Arbiter's crystalline features shifted in confusion. Terran Constructor Fleet? There is no such designation in Federation records. Human vessels are limited to waste management and resource extraction roles. Funny thing about records, Voss said. They only include what you bother to pay attention to. Sarah watched the Arbiter's expression change as the full scale of the human fleet became apparent on his screens. The elegant crystal being had spent centuries viewing humans as useful furniture. Now he was staring at a military force that dwarfed anything in Federation space. This is impossible, Kexmiran breathed. Humans lack the industrial capacity for such construction. Your technology is primitive, your resources limited. Our resources, Admiral Voss interrupted, include every scrap of material you threw away for the past 300 years. Our technology includes innovations developed while we were supposedly just cleaning up messes. And our industrial capacity includes 47 constructor vessels that can manufacture fleets while fighting battles. The transmission was interrupted by alarms throughout the Constructor Prime. Sarah felt the massive vessel shudder as something impacted its shields. Contact, shouted Torres. Void Swarm Scouts bearing 27 Mark IV. They're moving faster than projected. The main display switched to external cameras, showing Sarah her first glimpse of the enemy that had sent the galaxy's greatest civilizations running in terror. The Void Swarm entities looked like mechanical spiders the size of cities, their dark hulls absorbing light and sensor scans. They moved through space with predatory grace, their weapons already charging with ominous energy. All vessels, Admiral Voss commanded. Engage at will. Show these things what 3 centuries of anger looks like. The Constructor Prime's weapon systems came online with a sound like thunder. Sarah had expected typical Federation energy weapons, clean beams of coherent light or plasma. Instead, humanity had built something entirely different. Kinetic accelerators armed, reported the weapons officer. Asteroid rounds loaded and ready. Asteroid rounds? Sarah asked. Marcus grinned. We hollow out asteroids, pack them with explosives, and accelerate them to near light speed using gravity manipulators. Each round hits with the force of a small moon. We call them planet crackers. The first volley from the human fleet was unlike anything in recorded galactic warfare. Instead of elegant energy beams, space filled with massive projectiles moving at impossible speeds. When they impacted the Void Swarm Scouts, the results were spectacular. The mechanical entities designed to absorb energy weapons were simply smashed apart by brute kinetic force. Swarm entities destroyed, Torres reported with satisfaction. No casualties to human forces. But the real show was just beginning. More Void Swarm entities were emerging from hyperspace, hundreds of them, each one larger than the Scouts. These were the Harvesters, machines designed to strip entire planets of their mass and energy. Time to see if our theories were correct, Admiral Voss said grimly. All constructors, initiate rapid manufacturing protocols. We're going to build our way through this fight. Sarah watched in amazement as Constructor Prime transformed around them. Manufacturing bays opened along the vessel's hull, mechanical arms extending into space. Raw materials were being processed and assembled at incredible speed. New ships, taking shape even as the battle raged. Building sequence initiated, Marcus reported. Escort frigate construction time, 4 hours, 30 minutes. Wait, correction. 3 hours, 12 minutes, the nanomachines are exceeding projected efficiency. Nanomachines? Sarah asked. Self-replicating construction units. Marcus explained, his attention split between weapons control and manufacturing, oversight. We've had them for 2 centuries, but the Federation classified them as primitive human tinkering. Turns out those tiny machines are really good at building other tiny machines. The battle was intensifying, Void swarm harvesters were firing some kind of disintegration beam that simply deleted matter from existence. Federation energy shields would have been useless. Human ships, however, had different protection. Ablative armor holding, reported the tactical officer. They're burning through the outer layers, but the core structure is intact. Ablative armor? Sarah was starting to feel like every assumption she'd made about human technology was wrong. Layered plates designed to be destroyed, Admiral Voss explained calmly while coordinating the battle. Each layer absorbs and disperses energy. When one layer is burned away, the next layer underneath is fresh and ready. We can lose 90% of our armor and still fight effectively. Sarah realized she was watching a completely different approach to warfare. The Federation built elegant, efficient ships designed to win through superior technology. Humans had built crude, redundant vessels designed to absorb impossible amounts of damage and keep fighting. It's like the difference between a rapier and a sledgehammer, she murmured. Exactly, Voss confirmed. And sometimes the universe needs hammering. The Void Swarm was learning, adapting their tactics as the battle progressed. The harvesters began focusing their fire on single human vessels, trying to overwhelm even ablative armor through concentrated assault. But they hadn't accounted for humanity's real secret weapon. Constructor Bay 7 reporting, came a voice over the comm. First wave of replacement vessels ready for deployment, launching in 30 seconds. Sarah watched as the constructor, Prime's manufacturing bays opened, releasing a squadron of newly built frigates directly into the battle. The ships were still glowing with residual heat from their construction, but their weapons were already charging. How? She asked. We don't build ships the way the Federation does, Marcus explained, ducking as another impact shook the bridge. Federation shipyards construct vessels over months or years, installing each system carefully. We grow ships using programmable matter. Every component is designed to self-assemble from base materials. The battle was turning into something unprecedented in galactic history. As void swarm entities destroyed human vessels, new ones were being built to replace them. But more than that, each new ship incorporated lessons learned from the destruction of its predecessors. Adaptive manufacturing protocols engaged, reported Torres. New vessels are being built with enhanced armor configurations based on damage patterns from destroyed units. Sarah watched the tactical display update in real time. Human losses were being replaced faster than the Void Swarm could inflict them, and each replacement was more effective than the original. Meanwhile, the constructors were also manufacturing specialized weapons designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in swarm technology. Resonance torpedoes ready, announced the weapons officer. Targeting swarm communication nodes. Fire at will, Admiral Voss ordered. The resonance torpedoes were another uniquely human innovation. Instead of trying to damage the void swarm entities directly, they disrupted the quantum communication frequencies the machines used to coordinate. Suddenly, the perfectly coordinated swarm attack became a chaotic mess of individual entities acting without central direction. It's working, Sarah shouted as void swarm harvesters began firing on each other, their targeting systems confused by the disrupted communications. But the real surprise came when the first void swarm harvester was completely destroyed. Instead of simply exploding, it began breaking apart in a controlled fashion, its components being collected by human salvage drones. Resource acquisition in progress, Marcus reported with glee. We're harvesting the harvesters. You're what? Sarah stared at the display showing human vessels literally eating the remains of their enemies. The Void Swarm is made of exotic materials we've never had access to, Admiral Voss explained. Dark matter composites, quantum-locked metals, energy, matrices that exist in 11 dimensions. Every entity we destroy becomes raw materials for building better ships. Sarah realized she was watching something beyond warfare. This was industrial combat, where victory wasn't just measured in enemies destroyed but in resources acquired and capabilities enhanced. The human fleet was literally growing stronger by fighting. Admiral, came a transmission from Constructor Beta. We've successfully reverse-engineered swarm propulsion technology. Request permission to begin integration into new vessel designs. Permission granted, Voss replied. Begin manufacturing hybrid vessels immediately. The tide of battle was turning. Human ships enhanced with captured void swarm technology were proving superior to both their original human designs and pure swarm entities. The mechanical invaders that had consumed 47 star systems were being systematically dismantled and recycled. Incoming transmission, announced the communications officer. It's from High Arbiter Kexmiran again. The holographic display showed the crystalline leader of the Federation, but his elegant composure was completely gone. His translucent features were flickering with stress patterns Sarah had never seen before. Admiral Voss, the Arbiter said, his voice barely controlled. Our long-range sensors are showing impossible readings. Your vessels appear to be winning? Not just winning, High Arbiter, Voss replied with satisfaction. We're teaching the Void Swarm why you don't mess with a species that spent 3 centuries cleaning up everyone else's mistakes. But how? Our greatest military minds, our most advanced technology, our most powerful weapons, all of it was useless against the swarm. Admiral Voss smiled, and for the first time in 3 centuries, it wasn't the polite smile of a servant, addressing her betters. It was the confident expression of someone who had just proven her worth in the most definitive way possible. High Arbiter, she said, you've spent 300 years treating humans like we were stupid. You gave us all the jobs you thought were beneath your notice. Waste management, salvage, mining, construction. What you didn't realize is that those jobs taught us everything we needed to know. The Admiral gestured to the tactical display showing human vessels literally consuming void swarm entities and rebuilding them into new configurations. We learned how to take things apart and put them back together better. We learned how to find value in what others threw away. We learned how to build functional solutions instead of elegant ones. And most importantly, we learned how to survive when everyone else had given up. Sarah watched the final void swarm entities in the sector being systematically dismantled. The mechanical entities that had terrorized the galaxy were no match for a species that had turned recycling into an art form. The swarm is retreating, Torres reported. All hostile contacts are withdrawing toward the Galactic Rim. Let them run, Admiral Voss said. We've got their technology now. If they come back, we'll be ready. High Arbiter Kexmiran stared at the tactical display for a long moment, his crystalline features reflecting the light of human victory. When he spoke again, his voice carried a note Sarah had never heard from any Federation leader: respect. Admiral Voss, he said formally, on behalf of the Galactic Federation, I would like to apologize and to request assistance. Assistance? Voss raised an eyebrow. The Void Swarm has consumed 47 systems. Billions of refugees are fleeing toward the core worlds. Our infrastructure cannot support them. Our military cannot protect them. Our resources are insufficient. Sarah realized she was witnessing the end of an era. The Galactic Federation, the alliance that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, was asking humanity for help. The species they had treated as servants for 3 centuries had become their only hope for survival. High Arbiter, Admiral Voss said thoughtfully, we would be happy to assist. But things are going to be different from now on. Different how? Humans will no longer be accepting waste management assignments, Voss replied with a slight smile. From now on, we'll be handling galactic defense and reconstruction, and probably a few other jobs that need doing. Sarah looked around the Constructor Prime's bridge, seeing her fellow humans with new eyes. These weren't the downtrodden custodians she'd grown up believing they were. They were engineers, strategists, innovators, and warriors who had spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment. Marcus, she said, how long until we can start rebuilding those consumed systems? With Void Swarm technology integrated into our constructor capabilities. Marcus grinned. Give us 6 months and we'll have the first system fully restored. Give us 5 years and we'll have built something better than what was there before. Admiral, Voss turned to face the main display, which now showed human vessels spread across 3 sectors, their constructor bays already beginning the long work of rebuilding what had been destroyed. High Arbiter, she said, consider this humanity's formal application for full Federation membership. Not as custodians or waste management specialists, but as equals. The crystalline being's features shifted in what Sarah recognized as profound relief, mixed with something approaching awe. "Application approved," Kexmiran said immediately. "Welcome to the Federation, Admiral, as full members, with all the rights and responsibilities thereof." Sarah smiled as she watched human vessels beginning the work of reconstruction, their constructor bays already adapting void swarm technology for peaceful purposes. After 3 centuries of being underestimated, humanity had finally shown the galaxy what they were truly capable of. "Admiral," she said, "what's our next assignment?" Voss looked at the star charts showing the extent of void swarm damage, then, at the readings from human vessels already beginning to repair the devastation. "Our next assignment, Captain Chen," Admiral Voss said with a smile that held 3 centuries of vindication, "is to show the galaxy what happens when you give humans a real job to do." As Constructor Prime began moving toward the first devastated system, Sarah realized that humanity's time as the galaxy's custodians was over. Now they were its architects, rebuilding not just what had been lost, but creating something better from the ashes. The species that had turned rocks into rockets had just turned cosmic janitors into galactic saviors, and the universe would never underestimate them again.